Energylandia is a park in Poland, dating all the way back to 2014. In less than 10 years, they've amassed one of the biggest coaster collections in the world, currently with 17, about to reach 20. And if you're wondering how this is possible, the answer is government funding, including from the European Union. They wanted to build this place into a tourist destination, and they have definitely done that. But what's the deal with this massive collection of coasters? Today, let's look at all of them and find out which one is the tallest, fastest, longest, best paced, and rank them up based on prime ride time. These are the coasters of Energylandia, by the numbers. If you're new to this series, prime ride time starts when the train starts to pick up speed off the lift, and it ends when it hits the final brakes. For launch coasters, the clock starts when the launch starts. With the help of Google Maps and the Pythagorean theorem, I was able to take out the lift, the station, and the brakes from the overall length, so the number on your screen will not match what you see on RCDB. I tried to include all the coasters here, even the ones opening this year, but I didn't have enough information on their new Vekoma tilt coaster to add it on here. This will stand 147.6 feet. Reach a top speed of 52.8 miles per hour, but I don't know the length, and I don't know how long the ride will be, so I have to leave it off the list for now. In 19th place with 12 seconds is Happy Loops, an SBF Visa spinning coaster. One thing to make clear up front, a lot of these coasters are small, and a lot of them send riders around 2 or 3 times. For this list, I will only count the first lap for ride time. These SBF spinners are made to lap the course 6, 8, 10 times, whatever it is. But I am only counting the first lap, and it takes 12 seconds to get around it. Unlike most of the SBF spinners out there, this has a third loop, so it's more than just a figure 8. This is 15th in height at 23 feet, 16th in speed at 18.6 miles per hour, and 17th in length at 281 feet. Right there, you can tell this park has some very small coasters. It's so short, but it still has more track than 2 other coasters, and almost half of these have under 1,000 feet of prime ride track. Its pacing is the best stat, ranking 14th at 23.4 feet per second. In 18th place with 17 seconds is Draken, a Preston and Barbieri family coaster. This is a very small family coaster. I would probably tag it as a kids coaster, and you can find the same model at 6 other parks, all in Europe except for one in the Philippines. It rises up 19.7 feet and has a twisted drop, covering 327 feet of track, both number 16 in the park. It reaches 21.7 miles per hour and covers 19.2 feet per second, both good for 15th. In 17th place with 18 seconds is Honey Harbor, a Vekoma Junior coaster. This is opening in 2023, but it's been done and testing since last summer. I can't find any footage of this testing, but this is the 254-meter version of this model, the same one that just opened at Emerald Park, formerly known as Tayto Park in Ireland. I was able to use that one to time this one, standing 38.4 feet tall and covering 733 feet of track. That's 13th. 11th in speed at 28.6 miles per hour, and up at the middle in pacing at 40.7 feet per second. This is part of their new land, Sweet Valley, and this looks like a small version of Hershey Park. Tied for 15th place with 21 seconds is Frida, a Vekoma Junior coaster. If you're wondering, yes, Honey Harbor is also a Vekoma Junior coaster. If you want to know why they have 2, well, welcome to Energylandia. This is the 247-meter model, so it's slightly shorter, covering 635 feet and ranking 14th. But this one stands taller by about 4 feet, tied for 11th. Despite the height, it has a lower top speed, which is 13th, and despite having less track, its pacing isn't as good at 30.2 feet per second, also finishing 13th. Tied for 15th place with 21 seconds is Circus Coaster, an SBF Visa Dragoon coaster. Now, this is barely a coaster. It has no lift, it has no launch, it's just a powered track and it goes around in a very small circle. There's no listed height, but I'd say this is about 2 feet off the ground. That's last place. It only hits 7.5 miles per hour, which is also last. And it's that slow pace that makes this tiny circle last 21 seconds. It's last place in length at about 85 feet, and last in pacing at about 4 feet per second. This is about as small as it gets. In 14th place with 24 seconds is Energys, a Vekoma Junior coaster. Here we go again, a third Vekoma Junior coaster. This one bigger than the others as a 335-meter version. For Americans, this is the same coaster as Woodstock Express at Cedar Point. This has the same height as Frida, tied for 11th, but somehow it is a little faster, good for 12th. Also 12th in length at 780 feet, and you guessed it, 12th in pacing at 32.5 feet per second. Nothing special here, except this was the first Vekoma Junior coaster at the park. In 13th place with 26 seconds is Mars, an SBF Visa family coaster. It was hard to find stats for this one. I had no height stat, but it looks to be around 15 feet tall. That's 17th. Then, the park has it listed at 18 miles per hour, which is also 17th, and 15th in length at 437 feet. It winds around some good Martian theming. That makes this ride interesting, going up a spiral lift and even having a second booster section, but the train doesn't really slow down, so I left that in the ride time. It covers just 16.8 feet per second, 16th in the park, and it just gives you more time to admire all that theming. In 12th place with 29 seconds is Formula, a Vekoma Space Warp. Finally, we get to an actual adult coaster, and this was the coaster that really kicked off New Age Vekoma. It starts off with a launch at 49.1 miles per hour, 6 in the park, rises up to the ride's highest point, the Sidewinder, standing 81.4 feet, also 6. From there, it stays very low to the ground, going into airtime hills, twists, and 3 inversions. It is a short ride, just over 1,500 feet of prime ride track, but in a park like this, that's 7th place. All of those low elements help its pacing, finishing 4th at 52.6 feet per second. In 11th place with 30 seconds is Boomerang, a Vekoma family boomerang. These family boomerangs have become popular, lifting the train up a shallow backward spike, and then going through a very short course of twists and turns, then heading up a spike through a tower, and falling back to do it all backwards. That spike is 75.5 feet tall, tied for 8th in speed at 37.3 miles per hour, and even though its total track is just under 700 feet, you have to double it and subtract the first lift, a total of 1,238 feet of prime ride track and good for 10th place. Even with that stall out in the middle, it's still 8th in pacing. In 10th place with 31 seconds is RMF Dragon, a Vekoma family suspended coaster. This is the 453 meter version, so it's the same ride as Dragonflyer at Dollywood. It drops into a tunnel, maxing out at 65.6 feet and ranking 9th, hitting 47 miles per hour, which is 7th. And it winds around almost 1,300 feet of track, which is right in the middle in 9th. If it's like Dragonflyer, it should be a very enjoyable ride. Smooth and surprisingly intense, staying very low to the ground the whole time, but its pacing is only 9th in the park at 41.1 feet per second. It just doesn't have enough speed to give it a better pacing number. In 9th place with 33 seconds is Speed, an Intamin water coaster. This one's tough. It spends a lot of time as a water ride, moving slow along the river, and I decided to cut that out of the prime ride time. Because we are calling this a coaster, I'm only going to consider the coaster part of this ride. After that water part, it rises up an elevator lift, all the way up 164 feet, which is 3rd, then drops all the way down, almost hitting 63 miles per hour, which is also 3rd. But since we're only looking at the coaster part of this ride, it's down at 6th in length, 1,531 feet of track. That's where it lands in pacing also, cruising along its track until it hits the final splashdown, soaking its riders and also serving as the final brakes. In 8th place with 34 seconds is Light Explorers, a Vekoma family boomerang. No, do not adjust your TV set. They also have boomerang. This is yet another family boomerang. This one is the 238 meter version, so it's a little longer, still covering twice its listed track. I have this with about 200 more feet in 8th place. It's only a few feet taller, good for 7th, but it has the same listed speed at 37.3 miles per hour, tied for 8th. It may be simple, but it has a gorgeous setting, winding over and into a lake, going up its spike and doing it all backwards, 7th in pacing at 42.1 feet per second. Tied for 6th place with 35 seconds is Roller Coaster Mayan, a Vekoma SLC. It's weird to see a new SLC get built, but here you go. This obviously with vest restraints, so that makes the ride experience so much better. This is your typical 689 meter version. Think of Mind Eraser at Six Flags America and Darien Lake, Riddler Revenge at New England, Flight Deck at Canada's Wonderland, your run-of-the-mill SLC. This is 5th place across the board, 1,752 feet of track, 109 feet tall, 49.7 miles per hour, and 50.1 feet per second. The ride makes sense all around. Tied for 6th place with 35 seconds is Fruity Loop Coaster, an SBF Visa Wacky Worm. You can go get flipped around 5 times by the SLC, or you can spend your 35 seconds riding the Wacky Worm. This one is dressed up with a lot of theming inside the footprint, but it's still your typical Wacky Worm. I included the first big turn out of the station as ride time. It may be mild, but the whole ride is pretty much the same speed. This stands about 12 feet tall, hits 12.4 miles per hour, 224 feet of track, and 6.4 feet per second. All of this is second to last, the circus coaster saving it from bringing up the rear. Tied for 4th place with 51 seconds is Zadra, an RMC Hyper Hybrid. If Poland and the EU wanted to make this park a tourist destination, Zadra by itself does this. When it opened in 2019, it was considered one of the best coasters in the world. It was the world's first ground-up hyper hybrid, standing 206 feet, which is 2nd, topping out at 75.2 miles per hour, which is also 2nd. It has a lot of prime ride track, just over 3,700 feet, but that drops to third. But it's back up at second in pacing at 72.6 feet per second. It's the best paced RMC coaster, but only one coaster beats it in its own park. And speaking of that coaster, tied for fourth place with 51 seconds is Hyperion, an Intamin mega coaster. 1 year before Zadra opened, there was Hyperion, one of the biggest hypercoasters ever built. It stands 253 feet tall but drops into a tunnel, maxing out at 269 feet. That's by far number one in the park. Also tops in speed at 88.2 miles per hour, as well as pacing at 78.1 feet per second, about 5.5 feet per second better than Zadra. The only category where this falls back is length, covering just under 4,000 feet, missing out on number one by just 36 feet. Still impressive, and this ride looks awesome. In third place with 63 seconds is Viking Roller Coaster, an SBF Visa spinning mouse. This coaster has a bad reputation, and with those over-the-shoulder restraints on a spinning mouse, it's not hard to see why. Wild Mouse coasters love to crash the party when it comes to by the numbers videos. And here's this super slow spinning mouse coming in top 3. It's 14th in height and speed, up at 11th in length, and then all the way down at 17th in pacing, covering just 13.1 feet per second. Third place in ride time, third to last in pacing. That sounds about right for a Wild Mouse coaster. In second place with 75 seconds is Abyssus, a Vekoma Shockwave. This was the first of its kind, a very impressive looking launch coaster, offering 2 launches, 4 inversions, and the longest ride in the park. This is the one that barely beat Hyperion, and it's the only one in the park that's over 4,000 feet. On top of having a great setting with great use of water and trenches, it's a stat monster. 4th in height at 126 feet, achieved at the peak of the top hat. Also 4th in speed at 62.1 miles per hour, and it stays low to the ground after the top hat in a loop. 3rd place in pacing, still almost 20 feet per second behind Zadra, but just better than Formula. In first place with 76 seconds is Chaco Chip Creek, a Vekoma mine train. Here's another coaster that's done and testing, but it's not open to the public yet. This is a typical mine train, just with no terrain, featuring small drops and lots of sweeping turns. This also has 3 lift hills, dividing the ride into 3 sections of 26, 23, and 27 seconds, giving this the most ride time in the park. After taking out all the lift hills and the brake runs, it's only 4th in length at just under 3,000 feet. It loses about 1,000 feet to non-prime ride track. It's also 10th in height and speed, 11th in pacing. It's a mild ride for sure, but at 76 seconds, it's a marathon. If you leave the lift hills and the brakes in, it's over 3 full minutes of ride time. So this is a nice new intermediate coaster for the park. That's a wrap on the coasters of Energylandia, by the numbers. Let me know if anything here surprised you or confirmed something you already knew. I knew this park had a lot of family coasters, but never really studied their full collection. 10 of these coasters are considered kiddie or family, 2 of them are considered thrill rides, and 8 are considered extreme. In the end, that's not too bad. It may knock this park down for being the best coaster park in the world, but it's still super solid, including 4 very good looking thrill coasters. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with other videos in this series. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to be a baseball fan. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.